Welcome to Maple Bonsai. This is Mark Cruz, and today I'm going to talk to you about repotting Japanese maples. The Japanese maple has a very short duration in which you can repot it, and it's got to do with the leaf buds starting to swell. In this stage, it is ideal to repot the tree. When it reaches this stage of the buds have swollen quite a bit and the leaves are just beginning to unfurl, it's most probably already on the late side to repot. So remember that when you're going to repot, it's got to do with how the tree is rather than the time of the year. So it doesn't matter whether it's February, March, April. If the buds have begun to move, as we like to say in the bonsai world, then it's a good time to repot. You may get between 15 to maybe 45 days in which you can repot the tree, provided you spot the movement in the tree earlier. I would wait just a bit longer till the leaves are swollen between there and there to start repotting. Okay, so now that we have finalized when we're going to repot, this is the tree that we're going to repot today. It's a little Japanese maple. The soil has become quite compacted. The roots are beginning to get affected, and the growth of the bud, which should have progressed quite a lot, has not become as much as it should be. So to get the root ball out of the pot, we will start by using the sickle. It's got a serrated edge on one side. It helps with cutting it out of the pot. You need to apply a little bit of force to actually cut through the akadama and the pumice and the roots that are in the thing. Be careful that you don't it doesn't slip and you cut yourself when you are repotting. So you may need to go around a few times before you've been able to cut through into the So remember, there is a wire on it. Oh, and there's a slug. Not nice. So cut out any binding wires underneath. Use a wooden chopstick to help with dislodging it. So work your way around the pot, gently tweezing it out till you got it out of the pot. And there you are. You have quite a lot of roots going round and round and round that need to be cut. So, okay. The next stage is to make sure that before we start repotting, that we clean out the bonsai pot. In this particular case, I'm not going to be using this bonsai pot, so I'm going to be using a smaller bonsai pot. The advantage of using a smaller bonsai pot in this particular is that it will make the tree look much bigger. I'm going to use this little Chinese yellow pot for repotting the tree. It's got a nice floral arrangement on the side to help filigree. That will be quite nice on the pot. Okay, so I'm going to use some mesh to cover up the holes at the bottom. So there we are, another pot piled up, nice and ready. Put it aside for the time being, and then we carry on with now working on the Japanese maple. Okay, we start off by tweezing off any weeds that may be in the soil. I'm using tweezers. And I work on this little wooden block because it helps me keep my root ball intact. If I hold it in my hand, there's a danger that the root ball will break, and that's a no-no as far as I'm concerned. Because the idea is to repot with as less stress to the tree as possible. So by keeping the root ball intact, that ensures that the amount of stress that the tree. Now the idea is for me to remove about 0.5 centimeter, 3/4 centimeter of soil from the top, so that I can replace it with fresh soil. I will work from the sides into the nebari. So I use a pair of heavy duty shears to help me with my root pruning. You must dislodge all the soil from the root ball before you cut the roots. So once you've dislodged the soil and the pumice from there, you can then cut the roots back to the new surface of the root ball. But it's essential that you first tweeze away the soil and the grip, because that just affects the tip of the blade. It blunts it for. So I work my way around the tree. Clean the nebari base if there's any moss or anything on it. I get rid of any high roots or roots that are higher up in the thing needn't be there. Cut them off. And that's the roots that's crossing. It's crossing from one end over the other end. So it's not radiating outwards. All roots should radiate outwards. So I just get rid of that. And that gets a much tidier nebari base. Before I reduce the root ball any further, or the width of it and height of it, I need to measure out the size of the new pot. The old pot was quite a bit bigger than the new pot, so I'm going to measure out the new pot size. I have 13 centimeters length by 9 centimeters. I'll leave 1 centimeter all around for the fresh soil, so that will leave me 13 minus 2 is 11 centimeters. That means 5.5 centimeters on each side. So the new root ball, so I'll work away on the edges as before. Remove all the soil and the roots that are exposed, cut them away. Now measure it 5.5 on this side. Chopstick. So now looking at it, and the width of the pot is 9 centimeters, which means 7 centimeters, 3.5 on each side. So So start at the side that's closest to you. Remove to the mark that you made on that. Carry on. So now measure out 3.5 on the other side. So there we are. It's now fitting in nicely into the pot, and it's 1 centimeter all around. So, okay, now that we've got our pot and all sorted, and this the root ball done, and in fitting in properly into the bowl, we start by layering a thin layer of soil on the bottom of the pot, and we build a little mound in the center. This mound will help us arrange the tree. If you want to know the composition of the soil that I'm using, look up one of my videos on bonsai soil, and it will give you a full explanation of the types of soil that we use and for the species that we use. Okay, so now we need to ensure that the tree is lined up in the center. It is lined up in the center down the side, and that the nebari is just above. This is slightly below where I want it to be. So I'm going to raise it a tad by building the mound underneath. And here we go. I think that's kind of right. So it's centered down the side, trunk is vertical, and the nebari is just above. So now I'll fill up the thing with the rest of the soil. One of the things I use for managing my soil in the pot is I use a rubber mallet. The rubber mallet has been well used, so it's been boiled in water to make it a little bit soft. Okay, here we go. By tapping rapidly, the soil settles in underneath all the crevices and spaces that are there. So eventually, all areas underneath the root ball, if there are any, and you can see that the soil is disappearing underneath. That means there are some crevices that still need to be filled. So just top off quickly the spaces that need another tap or two. And now that I've settled it up, I will bind the, so I pull the wire from the long side towards the short side, making sure that it makes contact with the root ball, and then I tighten it with my hand as much as I can. Do the same with the other side, and making sure that I'm not touching the nebari. So While firming it in, I pull so that there's a gap that appears underneath the wire, and then I tighten it up. And pull again so that any gap that appears is closed up by twisting it. And pull, close any gap that appears by twisting. And then cut off, leaving just 1 or 2 twirls on the wire. And the other side. And then I'll just put a thin layer of soil so that I get a nice gradual slope in the pot. I'll use the spatula. It's a rather unique design spatula that helps with making sure that the soil gets in well, and I have maintain a little slope. So now we've repotted it to position the tree in the right place. I'm going to water it, and then we can moss it up. So there we are, there's the basin of water, and I'm going to give it a dunking so that it reaches just below. So the water feeds in from underneath. You can see it's starting to come in quite rapidly from underneath. Let it run for a second or two. Okay, so now that I've watered the tree, I'm going to place moss on it. I use golden dry sphagnum moss. The moss helps keep the soil from drying out too quickly, retains moisture at the top levels of the soil, and also provides an area where the roots can grow all the way to the surface. If you don't put moss layer on top, then because the soil continuously keeps drying out in between waterings, you lose the roots at the surface. But the moss, it's the moss that dries out rather than the soil. So when you water again after the moss is dried out, the roots are always in the top, all the way up to the top surface of the soil, till just below the moss. So I put the moss over the edges, and I've squished it into the side so that it sits underneath the lip of the pot. So that when the soil dries or the moss dries in the sun and it tries to lift, the lip contains it from lifting. So the surface doesn't, the edges of the pot don't curl. Sometimes it's a good idea to use your hand to firm the soil and the moss together. last step is I'm going to apply some green moss. This is the soil that's collected, or the moss that's been, moss spores are in here, and that's what I'm going to use to sprinkle on the sphagnum moss. And then within a couple of months, the sphagnum moss will support the green moss that grows on it. And within a few months more, the green moss will eat away the sphagnum moss and then connect to the soil below. And well, it gives the tree a finished look, and also it helps protect the surface roots. So it's a win-win situation, and one that I think is quite essential in the repotting process. And that basically is how we repot a Japanese maple. Remember, the key point when repotting a Japanese maple is to look for the bud swelling, and if the buds have extended too much, then perhaps it's better to wait till next year to repot. And that's it. That's one Japanese maple bonsai tree repotted. Thank you for watching, and if you did like the video, give me a thumbs up at the bottom there, and well, do subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Look out for my other videos, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.